Loss is something that is really hard to put into words. When it happens, we're often left feeling shock and stress and disoriented with the surrealness of it all. I know that when I experienced loss earlier this summer, I didn't know how to grapple with it, and I'm still learning how to manage my feelings and my grief every day. Grief and loss is something that can sneak up on you when you least expect it. I think that even more so for people in my community, the African American community in America, tend to rely heavily on faith, religion, friends, pastors, ministers, the like. There is a huge disparity between people of color being able to have therapists and have someone to talk to versus people that are part of mainstream America. So today I had the pleasure of speaking to a few of my friends as they were able to graciously explain to me their version of what the color of grief looks like.
I think the color of grief is a mix of like gray and blue. You know those visuals, like cartoon visuals that they give you when it's a cartoon whose brain is like just a bunch of like scribbles and you can't really understand like what it really is because they're just a mess of sorts.
That's an interesting question because I feel like my mind automatically goes to like black, like when I think of grief, and that probably is because like you go to funerals, you wear black, and like in movies when like there's like grief or loss, feels like it's like shaded like black or gray. I don't know. I feel like it's this in my head. If I like close my eyes and envision it, it's like a bluish gray black. That's not. I'm very sorry. It's not like that's not an exact color, but this like very like dark blue, almost black, almost like the color of like if you see those documentaries when they do like ocean films and you get far enough in the ocean that like it's not quite black, but you know there's some color there and it's like that midnight blue. I would say that's the color I think of when I think of like the word grief or like the feeling of grief.
In Asian culture, I feel like there is this stigma that you have to be perfect, quote unquote. So if you're feeling negative emotions or you're going through something, then I feel like you feel pressure. Even if your parents don't outright say to stuff it down, there's that pressure of, oh, I need to feel and act and look like everything's okay because everything needs to be okay for my family. Because in Asian culture, it's all about, making it to the top, getting straight A's, academic is first and foremost. Just push everything down so you can focus on your schoolwork.
I think of anxiety, honestly, but I also think of like relief. I think a lot of times for myself when I've thought like, oh, I want to go to therapy or like maybe I'll start thinking about finding a therapist. There's a part of me that feels like, no, like you don't do that. Like you're fine. You can handle your problems yourself or like talk to a friend or call family or whatever. But there's another part of me that feels like, well, no, I need that person to talk to and I need that like help, I guess. So it's a mix of emotion, and I think a lot of that comes from the Black community and their own feelings around mental health and therapy. I know I've had several conversations with my parents where I say, like, I think I'm gonna go to therapy. I think I'm gonna find a therapist. And immediately my parents are like, what's wrong? What happened? And I'll say like, oh, nothing. I just I think I want to talk to a therapist. Like, talking to you guys are fine, but I don't want to talk to family about my problems, or I don't want to talk to friends about my problems. It's nice to have this neutral party. So for myself, when I think of therapy, I think of, I don't know, this like, odd to say, but this like joy of having this other person there that you know is not judging you for the things that you say and is there to like support you. I don't know, thinking about therapy makes me feel good. It makes me feel like lighter.
I would say like my parents' generation, and especially my grandparents' generation, it was kind of taboo to talk about your feelings, or, you know, it's like, oh, just stuff everything down, like act like you're okay in front of everybody. And so when people want to reach out for help with whatever they're going through, mental health or emotions that they need to process, like reaching out for help just seemed like a sign of weakness, which I think is where that negative connotation comes from, because nobody wants to come off as quote unquote weak.
With like the African American experience, I think you have like grief and loss is so interwoven for Black people in America, right? And I think what you have is, I think African Americans are always grieving something. If you like look historically, right, you have the grief of like our homeland and our culture being taken from Africa and brought to this new strange place. You have this grief and this loss of your personhood within slavery and within Jim Crow and like even today. And so I think with Black people, there's always this like push to just keep soldiering on, and there's this push to just brush it off and go, no, I don't need help, I got this, I'm strong. And I think that can be really dangerous, because when tragic things happen, whether it's personal or whether it is affecting us as a community, there needs to be some sort of discussion about it, whether you're personally talking about it with a friend or whether or not you go to therapy and you seek help for what you're struggling with. I think Black people have just had to keep pushing and fighting. And I think when you talk to some Black people, it's like, well, I can't stop, because if I stop, then everything every other Black person has ever fought for is all in vain. And you're like, oh, well, they made it through that, so obviously they're tough. They can do it. They have the tenacity or whatever. And even like you were mentioning with like the thick skin portion, there's been so many like articles that I've read and stuff where like actual medical physicians will say like, oh, Black people don't need as much pain medication because they have a high pain tolerance and they have thicker skin, and all of these just like, I mean, just not even medically correct, but just this like backwards way of thinking. And I mean, I don't even know if I have a good answer to your question. I think Black people have just kind of been this face of like how to persevere through the struggle. And so I think when Black people have pain, whether it's collectively or individually, it's kind of just seen as like, toughen up, you can make it through this. I mean, everyone grieves differently. Everyone faces loss differently. I don't think there's one correct way to go through grief or the process of grief.
In my own experience as being an actor in the industry and trying to take care of myself and my mental health, I decided I was going to take a break for a little bit because I guess I was just feeling burnt out. Every time I got an audition, I would look at the script and it was just so overwhelming for me to just feel the pressure of memorizing the lines, even not even doing the audition, but just all the preparation for the audition just felt like too much. So I decided, you know what, I'm gonna take a break. But I didn't feel comfortable talking to my manager about this because I just feel like as an actor, they're always saying, oh, if this is something that you really want, then you have to work at it. Like, even if you're feeling down, even if you're feeling whatever, you have to do the work, you have to audition, you have to, do the thing. And so I didn't tell my manager about it because I felt like he was going to not understand that I was going through something and that I needed a break.
When I lost my grandfather in 2019, it was like the beginning of my semester for senior year of college, and that was probably one of the like roughest periods of my life. I like didn't really know how to go about things, and I think to a certain extent I'm still processing that loss, and I'm still going through that grief, and I'll have moments of sadness, like just this like deep sadness, especially around my birthday, which is like a day after his. And it didn't hit me until I think it was 2020 where I was like, why am I so sad? And then I was like, oh, his birthday is like tomorrow. Seeking therapy or going and getting some sort of help for whatever mental health issues people are struggling with feels like they're giving up. And it feels like they can't carry all this weight that they have so much pride in being able to do. I think letting it out first is what helps me the most. Like, whether it's, ranting about whatever it is that's frustrating me, or just telling my parents about it, I think is what helps me move forward in that process, and keep myself accountable for how I'm feeling, and not just like bottling it up and just saying like, oh, nothing's bothering me, I'm fine, nothing's wrong.
I am a case manager at a homeless shelter. So I work with clients who are currently experiencing homelessness, and we're a low barrier shelter. So I, meet them where they are. If they're in active addiction, I meet them, every week. If, they have a job, try and meet with them every week. Doesn't really matter what's going on in their life. We're still going to meet with them. We work to get them identification, income if they don't have income, any benefits that they might be applicable for, any types of housing assistance rather than just our own rental assistance. And yeah.
So tell me how therapy is essentially like beneficial, and how has it helped you personally also?
Yeah. So for me, I definitely deal with a lot of emotions and a lot of, people telling me everything that's going on in their life. And there's not always a lot of space for me to kind of deal with that as a normal person might process it. Like, I could hear one client tell me, all about their traumatic experience that they just had. And then, obviously I can't, cry about it if it upsets me. I mean, if I have to step away for any reason, yes, I'm going to, be professional about it, but it's not really a place where you can like, oh, wow, like I'm going to cry with you as you cry. It's more so, okay, thank you for telling me that. How can I, assist you in moving forward? So for me, therapy is good because it kind of allows me to process things that I hear, things that I see, things that I have to work through with clients, and then also in my own lives. I mean, having a caseload of like 15 clients, you kind of carry that burden of everybody's stuff. And then you also have yourself to worry about and all of your extra stuff. So therapy is a good outlet of, interacting and figuring out what you have to do for your own self-care.
Okay. So there's a lot of like people unloading on you all the time where you're just like, now what? What am I supposed to do with this? Okay. And so another question is, do you think that therapy should be available for all walks of life, no matter what your economic background is? And if so, why?
Yes, it definitely should be. I would love to see that happen. I think that would be very beneficial for everybody in the world. I think definitely when you look at different jobs, like even people who, have like a normal 9-to-5 job, they say they're bored. I mean, at the end of the day, you're still doing something that is going to be exhausting at the end of the day. And so like being able to talk to somebody and, you know, you might not be able to talk about how you're actively feeling while you're working. And something like that also like kind of allows you to have like, hey, like something happened to me at work. I'm going to, you know, process that with somebody else. So it's not just me kind of always thinking about what I'm going to do. So I think that's a good thing. But then we have people who, you know, work or blue collar jobs or white collar jobs. And all of this, I mean, I think every single job has things that can, you know, either positively impact or negatively impact somebody. So, I mean, having that space to process it with an appropriate person, I think is very, very beneficial.
So I am currently a third year doctoral student at California Baptist University. So I'm studying clinical psychology. And right now, my current like site that I work at is at a residential forensic mental health hospital. So what I do is I work with individuals that have like the primary diagnoses of like schizoaffective or schizophrenia, like disorder. And we just kind of work together to help manage their symptoms, to get them integrated back into the community. These people were also like recently incarcerated. So my job is to really kind of be that medium to help them like reintegrate back into their lives. So, you know, previously. And why I think that's very important is because from what I've seen, like working with these individuals and from like my studies and things, like it's really that support system that people are missing throughout their lives. And I think what therapy does a good job of is not only like providing like the scientific backing of supporting people, but just that relational aspect of like having that person to come and connect with you each week and work with you through your goals and through the things that other people might not think is like normal or typical, right? Like it's really difficult to hear voices or to be chronically anxious or to be super depressed all the time. That's a really hard experience that not a lot of people understand. And to have like just the clinical backing and training to understand that from a scientific lens, but also like the compassion to be with somebody and be like, yeah, that sucks, so let's work on it. I think it really helps people motivate to really live like authentically in the way that they really want to. So I've seen it be really beneficial for a lot of my clients.
Okay, that's great. How has therapy helped you as an individual? And also, do you think that therapy should be available for everyone, no matter their economic background and whatnot?
Yes, so I am currently in therapy and I have been for since the beginning of my program. And it helps so much because we kind of, as therapists, we experience a thing that we call countertransference. So that's whenever our clients kind of trigger us in a way that you know, triggers our background, right? So like if I have a client that maybe reminds me of an ex-boyfriend and that was a traumatic situation, you know, so like going to therapy really helps us process that out to be better clinicians, and just to help us, you know, be better people, because having a third party to just talk with each week is very helpful. And I think everybody should definitely have therapy regardless of background, like financial status, things like that. I definitely think everybody can benefit from it and definitely should have it available. I think it's unfortunate that it's kind of it's like in some, I know some cultures it's kind of a little bit difficult to get into therapy. And I know like in just, you know, just some like different backgrounds people have, like it's really hard to like just afford it, you know, to even seek it out. So definitely think everybody should have therapy and everybody should be going.
Darkness, you're never gonna get me. Desire,